Hello ladies and gentlemen, Tevaron here and welcome to my first ever set review for Magic Duels. I've never done one of these before, so it may turn out to be a disaster. But hey, those can be fun too, right? Anyways, a few disclaimers first. These are all my opinions, and I'm bound to be wrong on some of them, probably a lot of them. But this is my first raw evaluation of the cards without ever having played any of them. So, in this video we're going to be going through the colorless cards, sans lands, which will be combined with multicolored cards in a later video. I'm starting with colorless because this is an artifact-centric set, and a lot of the other cards have artifacts matter text on them, so it's probably a good idea to know what artifacts are available. Now then, on to the magical cards. First up, we have Accomplished Automaton. 7 mana for a 5/7 with Fabricate 1. Fabricate is a new mechanic in this set, and it always comes with a number. What Fabricate does is when this creature enters the battlefield, you may choose to put a +1/+1 counter on it, or create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. This card is bad. There are better options at 7 generic mana. Play those, not this guy. Hexplate Golem wasn't good enough. Neither is Accomplished Automaton. Next, we have Aradara Express. For 5 mana, we have an 8/6 vehicle with Menace and crew 4. First, let me say that vehicles are similar to equipment in that they require other creatures to function. They're not creatures in and of themselves, at least not without other creatures to crew them, and crew is an ability that vehicles have. The number after designates the amount of power of creatures you need to tap to crew the vehicle to turn it into the creature and gain the power and toughness in the lower right hand corner there. What all this means is that they would be taking up the same slots in your deck as equipment, cards that really don't do anything without creatures on board. Overloading on vehicles is a mistake. You have to realize that if you don't have creatures capable of crewing a vehicle, it does stone nothing. With a few exceptions, which we'll cover, the crew requirements increase geometrically as well. Crew 4 is a much harder cost to pay than Crew 3, and every turn you don't get to activate this card is a turn of 0 value. Now, vehicles do dodge sorcery speed removal, and they also tend to give you increased stats compared to their crew requirement, again, like equipment. Vehicles are a different beast to get a handle on though, and it's hard to know where they will shake out without practical experience. That said, I think you can do much better in the 5 mana slot than Aradara Express. In this set even, as we will see a bit later. Crew 4 is not cheap either. As I mentioned, you tap 4 power worth of creatures and then this gets removed in response. You've likely just time-walked yourself. While Menace is a useful ability and evasion is always nice, the rate on this card is bad. I don't think you should be playing Aradara Express. Ballista Charger. This is a 5 mana, 6/6 vehicle. When it attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature or player, and its crew cost is 3. Okay, this is a bit easier to swallow. Not a ton, but a bit. Now, I may be proven wrong in this, but I also think that Ballista Charger is not good enough to play either. Bastion Mastodon. This is the first in a cycle of artifact creatures that all have abilities you can activate for one of the 5 colors of mana. Bastion Mastodon is 5 mana for a 4/5. If you pay a white, it gains Vigilance till end of turn. Vigilance isn't exactly a rare ability in white, and The stats really aren't very good for the mana cost on this guy. About all I can say about this card is it's mediocre. And I don't think you want to be playing this if you have any other options. Next up is Bomat Bizarre Barge. 4 mana for a 5/5 vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Crew 3. Now this card is interesting. It actually does something without the need to have a creature out to crew it. Still, I just really don't think that this card is pushed enough to see a ton of play. I'm sure people will try. The drawing a card is nice, but there are other vehicles that I think are much more worth your time to be looking at, and we will get to those. Trust me, we will get to those. I don't think Bomat Bizarre Barge is worth playing. Bomat Courier. 1 mana for a 1/1 with haste. Whenever Bomat Courier attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. You can't look at it. Pay 1 red mana, discard your hand, sacrifice Bomat Courier, put all cards exiled with Bomat Courier into their owner's hands. Now this guy is very interesting. It's important to note that it doesn't need to deal damage to exile a card. But of equal importance is the fact that you need a red mana available to not lose those exiled cards forever should he meet an untimely end. I think this little guy warrants some experimentation. He could be really, really incredible. But time will tell. Next up, we have Consulate Skygate. For 2 mana, we have an 0/4 defender with reach. And reach says this creature can block creatures with flying. Not impressed. I mean, sure, it has reach, but ultimately it doesn't do enough. Even reach doesn't put it over the edge into playable status, I think. A Wall of Blossoms or Omens, this is not. Yet another vehicle here, we have Cultivator's Caravan. 3 mana for a 5/5 vehicle. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and the crew requirement is 3. Now here is a vehicle that is much more my speed. Yeah, okay, I'll stop now, but seriously, this fixes your mana and ramps you. Being able to turn it into a 5/5 is just icing on the cake. First truly playable vehicle of the set, as far as I'm concerned. There are already 4 and 5 color decks on Magic Duels. This guy just makes that even more feasible. Next up, we have Demolition Stomper. 6 mana for a 10/7 vehicle. Demolition Stomper can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Crew 5. I can't. I just can't. This card is terabad. 6 mana. Crew 5. 5? Are you kidding me? And remember, crewed vehicles are creatures. They can't attack the turn they come into play without haste. Next in the cycle of color-friendly artifact creatures is Dukara Peafowl. 4 mana for a 2/4. If you pay a blue mana, it gains flying until end of turn. This guy is a bit better than the Mastodon. I think flying is more relevant than vigilance. Still, just like the Bastion Mastodon, I think this card is very mediocre and I would not play it. I think there are a lot better things you can be doing with 4 mana. Dynavolt Tower. 3 mana for an artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you get these 2 little lightning bolt icons, which stand for energy counters, which is another new mechanic in the set. Energy is sort of like a mana, but not really. It doesn't drain at the end of each phase. The counters actually go on you, the player, also, so even if the card that gave you the energy leaves play, you get to keep the energy counters and they just stick around until you spend them. This mechanic has freed up a lot of design space for Magic R&D, so we are going to be seeing some interesting things with energy, and maybe even in future sets. We'll see. Anyway, you can also tap this artifact and pay 5 energy. Dynavolt Tower deals 3 damage to target creature or player. This is a very interesting card. It's a way to generate energy turn after turn, and its spending ability isn't bad either. If it didn't need to tap to deal the 3 damage, I'd be much more excited about it. Still, this may be a card that sees some amount of play in spell-heavy decks, like, say, Is It Thermo Thing? Wink wink. Next up, we have Eager Construct, 2 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature. When Eager Construct enters the battlefield, each player may scry 1. Alright, this guy is okay. Just okay. The fact that all players get to scry might even be bad. Your opponent gets to draw first after the scry. I mean, barring another card drawing spell or shenanigans that you may have available. Plus, there is a much better creature in this vein, just 1 mana more expensive, and it's a cute fox to boot. We'll see him a little bit later. Still, playing it may be a necessity in an artifact synergy deck, just to hit critical mass on artifacts. Electrostatic Pummeler, 3 mana for a 1/1 artifact creature. When Electrostatic Pummeler enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. You may pay 3 energy counters, and Electrostatic Pummeler gets +X until end of turn, where X is its power. Energy cost to activate this thing is too high, I think. You can combine this with pump spells to get more bang for your buck, but still it has no evasion to speak of, and it doesn't trample. It might be better simply as an energy generator, but honestly I think I would look elsewhere first. Now somebody may end up breaking this guy, but it certainly won't be me. Filigree Familiar, 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature. Fox. When Filigree Familiar enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. When Filigree Familiar dies, draw a card. Now here is the construct that I'm eager to play. Who's a cute little robo-fox? Who's a foxy little guy? That's right, it's you! This guy is incredible, and we'll see play in multiple decks. Anyone can cast him, he gains you life, he draws you a card, he slices, he dices, he just does it all. Great in control, great in emerge, aggro, mid-range, I don't think it matters. Foxy Brown has entered the building, and he ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Fleet Wheel Cruiser is a 4 mana 5/3 vehicle with trample and haste. When Fleet Wheel Cruiser enters the battlefield, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, crew cost of 2. Now, here's a vehicle worth writing home about. One of the best, possibly even the best vehicle. It gets to attack at least once, even if you have no creatures. It can clean up a Chandra pretty easily and doesn't die to her. Which Chandra? Doesn't matter. Take your pick. Kills them all. If vehicles see significant play, this will probably be one of the ones responsible for it. Foundry Inspector, 3 mana for a 3/2 artifact creature. Artifact spells you cast costs 1 generic mana less to cast. If there is a dedicated artifact deck, I think this guy will probably be part of it. Cost reduction is historically very powerful. I'm not sure the cards exist in Magic Duels to break this guy, but the synergy he produces cannot be denied. Giriper Orrery, 4 mana artifact. Each player may play an additional land on each of his or her turns. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. This card is potentially very scary, and honestly, potentially broken. I'm not saying it's going to break the format, but it has all the hallmarks of a card that could. Mana ramp plus card draw? Yes, please. If we had a couple more fog effects, pillow fort strategies could be super effective. I'm very interested to see what can be accomplished with this. Inventor's Goggles, the first of our equipment in this set. 1 mana to cast. Equipped creature gets +1/+2. Whenever an Artificer enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach Inventor's Goggles to it. Otherwise, the equipped cost is 2. This seems decent, especially with 24 Artificer type creatures making the transition to Magic Duels. And honestly, there may be some more already there. I haven't bothered to scour the existing cards for the Artificer type. This card could very well see play in an aggressive Artificer deck. We'll see. Key to the City is 2 mana for an artifact that allows you to tap it and discard a card, and up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn. Whenever Key to the City becomes untapped, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. This is another card that has tons of potential. A reliable madness outlet that also gives the best form of evasion to one of your creatures? That's pretty good. I'm not sure if the 2 mana to draw a card when it untaps is too expensive or not, or if decks running this will just need to up their land count to be sure to have it available. If you can't afford to pay the 2, then this is a much worse card still. A colorless, consistent loot ability is probably something that more than one deck in Magic Duels would like to have. Metalwork Colossus. 11 mana for a 10/10 artifact creature. Metalwork Colossus costs X less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. Sacrifice 2 artifacts. Return Metalwork Colossus from your graveyard to your hand. So this guy has pseudo-affinity, if you are familiar with that keyword, and he's huge. I'm kind of torn on him though. I feel that if a dedicated artifact synergy deck is a thing, then this guy is the end payoff. Also, there is a card coming up in the white set review that could make him much better. And he's a good reanimation target in general. I think he'd be a ton better if he was trample. Still, I think an artifact deck is where this guy can shine as the upper end recursive threat in that deck should it pan out. Multiform Wonder. 5 mana for a 3/3 artifact creature. When Multiform Wonder enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. Pay 1 energy. Multiform Wonder gains your choice of Flying, Vigilance, or Lifelink until end of turn. Pay 1 energy counter. Multiform Wonder gets +2/-2, or -2/+2 until end of turn. This guy. Artifact Morphling, anyone? Now, I may be overestimating this guy because of Morphling nostalgia, but damn. With just the energy he generates himself, he can attack as a 5/1 flying lifelinker. If you can generate energy consistently, wow. Just wow. Plus, being fueled by energy instead of mana lets you spend your mana on other things. The one downside is his lack of self-protection. He has no shroud or hexproof ability, and no return this to your hand ability, etc. Still, the rate seems incredibly good on this guy, and I'm pretty excited to give him a try. Next in the cycle of color matters creatures is Narnum Cobra. 2 mana for a 2/1, and you can pay a green mana to give it Death Touch until end of turn. I'm just really unimpressed overall with this cycle of creatures as a whole. This guy is a bit less than mediocre, honestly. If you want a Death Touch creature in green, play Gnarlwood Dryad. You'll feel much better about yourself. Oval Chase Dragster is 4 mana for a 6/1 vehicle with trample and haste, and a crew of 1. So, colorless ball lightning. I'm not sure about this vehicle. It does have haste, and the crew cost is as cheap as it gets. Still, a creature is required. It can't just attack once for free like Fleet Wheel Cruiser. That said, it is uncommon. So I feel this card could be good, just not sure yet, so I'll give it a solid maybe playable. Prakata Pillarbug is the black addition to the color-centric artifact creatures cycle in the set. It is 3 mana for a 2/3 artifact creature. For a black mana, you can give it lifelink until end of turn. So, if Duels had sideboards, I think this guy would have more potential. It doesn't. So, he doesn't. Still, you are going for a black control deck without blue, then maybe you want this guy. Though Drubai Murklurker hasn't been good in a while, so I don't really think this guy is either. Renegade Freighter is a 3 mana 4/3 vehicle. Whenever Renegade Freighter attacks, it gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. Crew cost 2. This is a really good raid on a vehicle. Turn your 2-power creature into a 5/4 trampler. Build your own Reality Smasher. I think this card is also one that would see more play were sideboard's a thing. He's much better versus slow controlling decks than other archetypes. Still, another worthwhile vehicle, I think. And better vehicles are further down the list. Scrap Heap Scrounger. 2 mana for a 3/2 artifact creature. Scrap Heap Scrounger can't block. 1 black and 1 of any color. Exile a creature card from your graveyard. Return Scrap Heap Scrounger from your graveyard to the battlefield. Sound familiar? It should. This is an objective upgrade to Despoiler of Souls. It's easier to use in every conceivable way, easier to cast. The reanimation cost is only 1 black instead of 2 black. Only 1 creature needs to be exiled instead of 2 to return it to the battlefield. It still can't block though, so only aggressive strategies need apply. Self-Assembler. 5 mana for a 4/4 artifact creature. Subtype Assembly Worker, which is important, because when Self-Assembler enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an Assembly Worker creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. An Artifact Squadron Hawk. Well, not quite. I don't think this is good enough in standard paper Magic, but Duels is a different beast, and I'm unsure. I can see the upside. If there are other assembly workers worth playing coming in Aether Revolt, I think this card's stock goes way up. But at present, I'm leaning towards not really good enough. Sky Skiff. Another vehicle, 2 mana for a 2/3 this time, with crew 1. This card's okay. Though in a world with Smuggler's Copter, which we will see in just a minute, I don't think this card makes the grade. As you'll see, the Copter is better in every conceivable way, except the number you can put in your deck on Magic Duels. Sky Sovereign, Console Flagship. 5 mana for a 6/5 vehicle with flying. Whenever Sky Sovereign, a console flagship, enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Crew cost 3. Wow. There's a reason that Sky Sovereign is the flagship. And in the vein of Fleet Wheel Cruiser, this does something without needing a creature when you cast it. Lumbering Falls and Wandering Fumarole can crew this. Should you resolve this, and can consistently crew it, Sky Sovereign should dominate the board. Sadly, it's a mythic, so in Duels you only get to play 1 per deck. So enjoy it when you draw it. Smuggler's Copter. 2 mana for a 3/3 vehicle with flying. Whenever Smuggler's Copter attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Crew cost 1. The aforementioned copter. This card is great. 1 to crew, lets you loot when attacking or blocking, lets you use your cheap low-power dorks to take to the air and filter through useless chaff in your hand. I think this is another contender for possibly the best vehicle in the set, and I hope to play a lot of it. Snare Thopter is 4 mana for a 3/2 artifact creature with flying and haste. Now this card is interesting, however, I'm not sure it's good enough even in a dedicated artifact deck. 4 mana seems like a lot for what this does, and I imagine there are things you'd much rather do with 4 mana than this. I could be wrong though. I'm only human. Torch Gauntlet. Another equipment for 2 mana. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and the equip cost is 2. Okay, I understand the purpose of this card. Make your dorks better able to crew vehicles. But adding equipment to a deck that already has vehicles seems like a terrible move. You're just doubling down on cards that actually need creatures to be useful. I don't like this card, even in a deck without vehicles. I'd much rather that they had just given us Bone Splitter, but I suppose that might be too good, so here's Torch Gauntlet. Next up, we have Weldfast Monitor, the last of the color artifact creature cycle thingamabobbies. 3 mana for a 3/2, and for a red, you can make it Menace until end of turn. Alright, this is potentially the best of the cycle, though still not great. The cost to stats ratio is better. Still, I think I'd max out on Filigree Familiar before I'd even think about running this thing. Still, if you need to hit critical mass in your artifact deck, he's certainly more fodder for the cannon. Workshop Assistant is 3 mana for a 1/2 artifact creature. When Workshop Assistant dies, return another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. This guy most likely gets played as a 4-of in an artifact deck. I really don't see why you would want to play him at all outside of that. 2 of them will let you block forever. He might be okay to emerge onto, but we have better options. I think he is just utility for the artifact deck, and honestly, he may not be good enough for that. Time will tell. Alright, let's round out this video with what I think are the top 5 colorless cards in the Magic Duels version of Kaladesh. First, honorable mentions: Uriper Ori and Baumat Courier. Uriper Ori just might be busted. I hope it is. I want to see this card broken in half. And Baumat Courier is a card that I am super excited to try out. Card draw while dealing damage? Sign me up. Number 5. Cultivator's Caravan. Have you had enough of 4 and 5 color decks on Magic Duels? Too bad, now the color fixing just got a lot better. Number 4. Sky Sovereign Consul Flagship. This card has the potential to totally dominate the board. Still, it is a mythic, and in Duels you only get to run 1 of those. It's also legendary, so even in paper Magic you can only have 1 in play at a time. Number 3. Fleet Wheel Cruiser. Very good vehicle. Can kill most planeswalkers the turn it comes down, even without a buddy to crew it. Seems strong. Number 2. Smuggler's Copter. Maybe the best of the vehicles in the set. The rate on this thing is awesome. Card filtering, madness enabling. Yeah, if I'm running a vehicle, I probably want it to be this one. Well, you guys probably guessed what my number 1 is. I just can't gush enough about this card. Filigree Familiar, the little fox that could. Say hello to a Foxy Brown, the baddest fox in the whole damn town. I fully expect to see this card everywhere for a long time to come. Well, that will do it for my review of the colorless cards of Kaladesh. Tune in next time when we will be discussing the white cards of Kaladesh. Thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like below. It helps tremendously. And subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. Adieu. And until next time, friends, be excellent to each other.